and welcome to the May 20th Tuesday meeting of the Economic Development Subcommittee. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone else in this audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and state your name and city of residence. At this time, I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. Wishes to speak, please approach the podium, identify yourself by name and address, and identify the agenda item on which you would like to speak, and then you may speak on it for no more than 2 minutes. Seeing no one who wishes to speak, we will now move on to our agenda. So item number 1 is approval of the minutes for our Tuesday, March 18th, 2025 meeting. Those were emailed to everyone ahead of time, and Mary Jo Bohart has graciously brought paper copies. So hopefully folks have had a chance to look at these.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made. Second. Okay, and all in the affirmative.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, then we have the update on housing, including the Intown Fitchburg HDIP units, and I've invited economic development. I'm sorry. I've invited Planning Department Executive Director Liz Murphy to come and speak to us about what is happening and how important it is to our city's growth. Liz, please have a seat.
Thank you. Thank you. As you alluded to, we have quite a bit of housing activity that's happening, particularly in our downtown, but it's broader than just the downtown. But I did want to focus on the downtown because we have such a concentration of opportunity here. We have, between projects that have recently completed, projects that have been permitted, projects that are currently under construction, and projects that have approached us and said that they plan to develop housing and are in various stages. We have over 600 units of housing that is scheduled or recently completed in downtown. So that's pretty significant amount of housing, and many of those projects are market rate housing projects, and as we've talked about in the past, one of the tools that can be used to help incentivize market rate projects is HDIP, and what I wanted to say is that the developing market rate housing can be really challenging in gateway cities in particular, and it can be very financially challenging. So what ends up happening is when a developer can't make the math work, they start looking for subsidies, right? Now, there are many affordable housing subsidies. Those are also very competitive, but there's more of that out there. So affordable housing subsidies have existed for a long time, and they can be a good tool, but it's really important to have a healthy mix of housing, and you don't want to concentrate just affordable housing into downtown, as we know that right now we have about 70% of our downtown housing is affordable, meaning that it's restricted in some way by a subsidy. So we are encouraging that healthier mix of housing through tools like HDIP. One of the challenges that even though land values can be very low in Fitchburg compared to places like Boston and Metro West, the cost of construction is still just as expensive here as it is in Boston. Yeah. But you can't get the rents here that you could get in Boston, nor would we want to have our rents be $3,500 a month. But some market rate housing would be great. So the state has stepped up and said that they created this housing development incentive program, which is the HDIP program. As you may know, we have 5 projects that have been approved for HDIP, 4 in our downtown, and then 1 on River Street. So we've been very fortunate that we are getting some of these HDIP incentives, and what I wanted to say about that is a lot of times the projects just don't work without the math doesn't work to actually generate enough revenue to support the cost of the debt service because of those construction costs. But HDIP, that tool can provide both two types of tax incentives that help those developments move forward. They provide a local option real estate tax exemption, which we've called a tie agreement, and that reduces the amount of property tax on the post-rehab value of the property, and that can help the developer's bottom line so that the math works out. And then there's also an incentive on the state side, which is an actual tax credit. And then, if they don't have a tax need for those types of credits, they sell those credits and they get funding for them in return. So that's how they finance those projects. There's so much opportunity to convert office space in our downtown and industrial space, but mostly in downtown it's office space. But those projects are extremely challenging to make work because they really weren't built for housing. They were built to be offices. So when something like housing conversion is contemplated, you're basically taking the project down to the studs, taking the building down to the studs, and really constructing this new housing inside of that shell. That's the most expensive way to create housing. Now, we want that to happen because that's important for our downtown. But honestly, it would be less expensive for a developer to build new construction on vacant land than it would for them to convert our office space. So what ends up happening is those properties have, they might be over 100 years old. They have many remedial needs. They might have foundation issues. A lot of times they're going to have to replace their sewer and their water lines coming from the building into the street because they're so old. They have to install sprinkler systems, bring them up to code. It just becomes very expensive. So these HDIP incentives are sort of the golden ticket to make these projects feasible, and we've been lucky that we have a number of developers that have been able to seize that opportunity. They have good projects. Their projects are seen very well. They're very successful in getting their HDIP applications, and we expect that to continue. But once those projects are renovated and finished, now you have this consumer base that has some disposable income in our downtown. You have I think in every instance so far, the first floor commercial space has been renovated at the same time. So we're leveraging that housing renovation to get improvements to the storefront. Most of the storefronts that have been improved, they're leased up now, sometimes even before the construction's finished.
How long has HDIP been around? How long have developers been able to access that form of funding for the, what amounts to historic preservation as well as development?
So it's been around for a while now. I want to say it was 2009 that we might have created our first HDIP zone, and then we expanded in 2016, I believe. So that's why we ended up with both River Street and downtown. One of them was an expansion. The funding for the HDIP program, it was so competitive that they did not have enough funding. So they had this backlog of applications for a while, and so our community wasn't really able to tap into anything in recent years until the state increased the amount of funding to the HDIP program, and now it's again very well subscribed to, but they have enough funding to be able to fund the projects that they see coming down the pipeline. So this has been a really great tool, and I think we're going to see more and more housing in Fitchburg, and I think it's something that we want to welcome because housing really is part of it's an ingredient in the recipe for economic development. And it's an important one, right? We need to have people that live here, that want to live here, that have disposable income, that want to consume what our businesses have to offer.
Any questions from or comments from economic development? One of the reasons we want to have regular meetings is to update not only ourselves and the general city council, but also the public who may be seeing the canvases on the downtown buildings that show economic activity, that show, construction activity, and to let people know that this is all viable and this amounts to adding to our housing stock. And we are uniquely placed because of the proximity of the train station and the bus station, the intermodal. I think the term you used in our meeting last week was transit-oriented downtown, which makes it feasible. And again, we just, we passed the requested legislation about, the MBTA zoning piece. So we're really in line to have the attention and have the, have the opportunities to work with other developers.
Right, and our downtown is not only our HDIP district, it's also our smart growth district because we can leverage our train station. And of course, it's our MBTA district because of the train station. So we have multiple layers of opportunity there. So HDIP is providing financial incentive, but smart growth and MBTA provide, uh-oh. Okay. Sorry about that. So the smart growth and MBTA, they don't provide, well, they provide relief in some of the zoning requirements.
Okay.
You can build denser housing downtown because of smart growth and MBTA than you otherwise would have been able to. The parking requirements are less restrictive than in other parts of the community because of these zones. So we have certainly set the table to encourage housing in our downtown. And, can we do more? Sure. Can we do more to be thinking about other parts of the city? Absolutely. And, I think that's something that we need to start looking towards.
Thank you. Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, I was going to ask Liz about some of the other buildings that are not downtown and have been sold to developers. And there's one particular in my ward, the old Laurel Street School. Have you heard anything about anything going on with that? And there's also one in Council Boschman's ward that is near the church, near St. Joseph's Church, the old elementary school that's been there a long time.
Yeah.
Those two pieces, I look at those so often and say, it's been so many years. Would HDIP help these developers?
It wouldn't because HDIP, those aren't in our HDIP zones.
Not in their HDIP, yeah.
However, we could contemplate expanding our HDIP zone. I think some communities actually have their entire community be their HDIP zone. I mean, I think we need to be thoughtful about that. But speaking to those specific properties, I know that the Laurel Street School, that one was sold to Steve Sene to redevelop. He reached out to us that he is trying to get his funding, at least partially, through a program called Commonwealth Builder, which provides a subsidy specifically to create home ownership opportunities. And he has a plan to build basically like duplexes that would be condos. And he's just waiting for that next round. So he reached out to me just recently, said, hey, can we extend our agreement? I need more time, which I very much appreciate, him staying connected to us. So that's still his intention to pursue. That's still the plan.
Still the plan.
Yeah. When it comes to the St. Joseph's School, I think that's the property you're talking about in Cleghorn.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that keeps being passed back and forth between property developers, and they don't do anything, right? Actually, I'm not sure how often it's been passed back and forth, but there's been a lot of interest. We haven't seen interest recently, but there was a period of time after the pandemic where we had a lot of developers coming in, asking us what they can do there, talking to us about, the planning process, and then nothing has really come of that.
Yeah, it's really deteriorating.
Yeah, and the longer it sits and deteriorates, the more challenging a project it will be, and the more costly it will be. And those are some of the challenges. Is the longer these properties sit, the harder it is to renovate them.
And we just had the city cleanup. They attract a lot of trash, too, of course, because they're just sitting there vacant. And it's really a shame that, for the neighborhood, especially, I mean, Laurel's, they're both in dense neighborhoods. So.
Yeah. And I think this is part of a bigger conversation about trying to identify some of the barriers to getting some of these vacant buildings back into production. There's a number of those challenges are relating to the parking or lack thereof, right? Sometimes it's about the nonconformity of the property and the, it's maybe a large parcel or a large building on a postage stamp lot. We're trying to tackle it a little bit, kind of one property at a time, and see if we can help potential developers solve for those problems. We just met with the owner of 50 Oliver Street that's been vacant for a very long time, and she's looking at, how can I make this work? How can I renovate this? She said, I think the math only works if I can add a second story, but there's no parking here. And we measured it out and said, oh, you know what? The parking garage is within 800 feet of
they could park there.
Yeah, they can park there. They don't need to have the parking on site.
Yeah.
And so she's excited about moving forward. We'll see what comes of that.
With the Laurel Street property, there used to be a school, Rowstone Street School up above. Was that part of what was Delta, or is that a
yes. Yeah, that's all sold together as one parcel.
Okay.
So I think their intention is to do some new construction on that upper part, potentially, and then they're still kind of working out, are they going to save the building and build inside, or are they going to knock that down and reuse that space for additional units?
Like you said, it'd probably be more expensive to renovate the building.
Yeah, I think it actually would be less expensive for them to demolish it. It would be a shame, but, that's a little bit beyond our control, whether they save it or demolish it.
Right. Thank you, Liz.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? No? Liz, thank you so much for coming forward and sharing, sharing this. I think that starting with the housing is always really important that we talk about that, because I know from speaking to like Paul Tossi and Mr. Mazzapero, who's doing the Ivor Johnson, Mills building, what we have for building stock is remarkable and unique. And we had homegrown architects such as H.M. Francis, who created both residential and commercial properties that are simply remarkable and add to the, beauty of Fitchburg and really are the treasure. So as much historic preservation that unfolds, the better. As we move into the 21st century. So I am looking here. Dan, do I have my, hello. Dan, do I have my, my PowerPoint about recent business openings, or do I have to go to? Got it. Okay, I will recess for like 3 minutes while I just get this up and running, and we move on to our next item. Is a motion to accept?
Thanks.
All right.
Second.
Awesome. All right. We'll see you in 3 minutes. All right, we are back from our recess. So we have been joined by Economic Development Director Mary Jo Bohart, and we had a meeting last week, so I requested just a list of the recent business openings. So you should have this piece of paper in front of you, and Mary Jo made copies for everyone because there are upcoming ribbon cutting events. But we're just going to go through these images, and as you'll see, recent business openings, Fitchburg, Mass, since March 18th, previous Economic Development Subcommittee meeting. So first on our list is Kamikito Catering, 199 Main Street at Rollstone Church. So the ribbon cutting was in late March. Rodrigo Souza is the owner, and I believe that he used to have his operation in another city. Is that correct, Mary Jo?
That is correct. Yes. So he has brought what is a catering operation to the commercial kitchen within Rollstone Church. And some folks may recall that is where Finicky Fork Catering first got its start. So this is the second caterer to be using that kitchen.
Yes, and if you are familiar with Rollstone Church, you'll see that it is a lovely, it's a lovely space for gatherings, and they would like to do events both in the church as well as, taking their they're dining on the road, as it were. But this is really exciting. Rollstone Church does have a commercial kitchen, and other really businesses that we love, such as Finicky Fork, and others have started at that kitchen, and this is the latest iteration. So we will go on to their ribbon cutting. So there's Rodrigo with members of the chamber, members of City Hall, very festive, very nice, delighted. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go through all of these, and if we have questions or comments to Mary Jo, we'll save them for the end. Our next business that opened is Mara's Cakes at 150 Main Street. And there is their offerings, and why I didn't stop there today to bring us cupcakes, you'll have to forgive me. But they are really yummy cakes, and there is their ribbon opening. And Marari Candelario is an owner. And Mary Jo, what can you tell us about the Mara's Cakes and their business?
What's a terrific story, and it doesn't always happen, but the shared commercial kitchen at Fitchburg Public Market, which is 35 Main. One of the visions that we've had is growing what we call the food ecosystem. So some of the small food businesses may start at a shared commercial kitchen, and a few of them may decide they want their own brick and mortar. And that's precisely what Mira Candelario decided to do. So she spent about a year at the 35 Main, Fitchburg Public Market. That's where some folks may know Mira's Cakes. And when this storefront became available, kind of diagonally across the street, she took advantage of the opportunity, and now she has her own brick and mortar. So it's a nice evolution of what was once a very small food business to take the next big step, once again remaining in Fitchburg.
Lovely. Now, from food to tattoos, some of us were able to attend the Backdoor Ink at 333 Main Street. They had the ribbon cutting in April. Desiree Feliciano is the owner. I love this little sign. It says, "Your first tattoo, ? Ring the bell." So it's a nice way to celebrate. We have the interior shot here. So prior business location was Billerica, and she told Mary Jo this was an ideal site for her because of sinks installed from the previous business. As you can see, the inside is, really kind of elegant and deluxe looking. So Mary Jo, how are these folks doing?
So we're thrilled to have this particular business come in very quickly after the prior tattoo shop. Many of you recall Red House Irons. He was there for quite a few years. But because of how this space had been set up with all the plumbing and individual workstations, it really was ideal for a tattoo operator. And she saw it and decided she wanted to relocate from Billerica to downtown Fitchburg. She's someone who grew up in North Central, so she's kind of looking at this as coming back home, if you will. And she also likes the fact that she's in a cluster of female-owned businesses. There's a few of them in that part of the downtown in a row. So kind of a nice spot, but it was very deliberate on her part.
Excellent. Now we come to a very interesting operation, and I just, as a historian, I'd love to remind everyone that Fitchburg began education before we had public education. We had music teachers here. We had teachers, we had milliners here. We had people that basically other folks could apprentice with. And so the idea of education in Fitchburg, beyond kind of academic, is always been part of who we are. Hairstyling salons and schools and academies. Well, New England Institute of HVAC at 480 Main Street will be starting their classes next Tuesday. And there is their storefront. And this, we believe, I think this is David, and I spoke to his wife, Haley. They are a husband and wife, and then they have a partner to do classes. They still have spaces, so Haley said if people are interested, they can still sign up for Tuesday, and that they are offering classes that are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but they also offer night classes. And I did a little research about this industry. The average HVAC operator in Massachusetts is like 55 years old, which, from my perspective, is really young. However, we can't have our infrastructure be tended to by an aging population. So I think this is terrific, and I look forward. I said to them, we'd love to come down and visit when you have classes and take pictures and, get them in the local media. But Mary Jo, I mean, this is very cool.
Yeah, it's great. Two things to note. This is an experienced operator because they have an established similar type of workforce training school in Lowell. So they wanted a second location. We're just far enough away that it's a completely different target market of students. And one more thing is that these students and the instructors, but particularly the students, then become consumers in the downtown when you think of various eateries that we have in the vicinity. So it's great to see this storefront get activated in this way.
Yes, and Haley told me that the graduates will be able to access EPA certification. They will be ready to start working for licensed operators as soon as they complete their coursework. So this seems, along with the MVP Academy that our schools just opened, we're really kind of moving forward on the industrial and the practical and maintenance-oriented occupations, which are well-paying positions. So I saved this one for last because I just think this is such a brilliant idea for a business. Oh, nope. This is also a brilliant idea for a business. Let me get to my updated. This is very cool. So Senior Helpers in Fitchburg, they are actually having their ribbon cutting coming up. Next Wednesday, I believe it is.
At 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock. So this is another this is a business that has lots of other, lots of other examples, established business elsewhere. So they were founded 2002, Baltimore, Maryland, and there's now more than 300 locally owned and operated franchises. And they really specialize in every sort of family member, ailment and illness. If someone has Parkinson's, if someone has had a stroke, if someone has dementia, they work with all different kinds of, family members to provide support for the family who are looking to keep someone in their home, which, as we all know, is psychologically healthier and economically, more sound, and an important option for family members. So, Mary Jo, this is a very interesting business we now have, or operation.
Yes, and these types of service providers exist elsewhere. It's great to see that this duo, and it's a husband and wife pair, have settled in a space, an office space in Fitchburg, because they'll serve both our city and the region very well.
Excellent. All righty, and our final business is Let's Rage, 16 Putnam Street. The owner, Brian Lipomi, is a Fitchburg resident, and this is what you can do at Let's Rage. You can destroy appliances, and you can do axe throwing, and you can just get all of your frustrations out in this very picturesque way. And they also have paint gun stuff, too.
They call it a splatter room, I believe. You put a special outfit on, and you and friends or family can make a splattery paint mess and not ruin anything at your home. You do it there.
I was very interested because I saw that they were originally down on John Fitch Highway right next to Carol's Dairy Bar, where, again, that's a great location in terms of people finding it, but in terms of people driving quickly by it, probably not so strong. So Mary Jo, how is it that they have come to be at Putnam?
It was a deliberate choice by the business owner. He definitely wanted to come into the downtown district based on other, I'll call them experiential businesses that are already here. He's right beneath the bowling alley, which is a very popular destination, something to do. We have curious escape rooms. Soon we will have the bar arcade, which is various types of video games. And so being in a downtown district was really the type of place he wished to be. And that's what brought him to this particular storefront. And
this, I feel like, we've done food, we've done elder care, we've had, the tattoo, and then we have this, and we've got education. It's a really interesting array of businesses just in the last 2.5 months. Are things moving more quickly, or is that just a perception?
This definitely feels like a fair bit of momentum that's ongoing. We can't expect it to always have such a large quantity because the businesses you're speaking of have all opened since this committee last met, which was just 2 months ago. So, it comes in waves, and this was certainly a very active period. But it also speaks to the downtown district, since many of these have located downtown. The healthy downtowns in this day and age have a diversified set of business types. That's considered much better than maybe the olden days where you would have seen a lot of department stores and that kind of thing. Those days are gone. So seeing a mixture is good.
And I think also what's interesting is that these are these businesses on Main Street, they also are beyond 9 to 5. So the entertainment district idea, the idea of you're going somewhere and there are, choices of what to do. I'm working with Victor's on Main. We're going to have a meeting on Thursday. All musicians and singers are invited to come Thursday, 6 o'clock at Victor's, because he wants to have more singers and musicians and offering that. So again, like having front-loading sort of the entertainment options will bring people here and will put people on the sidewalks, and then, the folks have places to live as well.
Exactly.
So, great. And comments or questions? I realized I wanted to put these pictures out there so it wouldn't be just, oh, this name, that name. And I think, this kind of gives you an idea also what their storefront looks like, so you can recognize it if you're going to go. Comments, questions for these folks? Anybody? Okay. Well, we look forward to hearing more, and please, if you're able to, the upcoming ribbon cuttings are at Wednesday, May 28th at 12 noon at Cluck and Crispy Chicken, 367 John Fitch Highway. Also, on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Senior Helpers at 881 South Street, Unit 2. And then, Mary Jo, finally, we did want to talk about 36 Hours in Fitchburg, and I have the flyer here. And we also have Worcester Business Journal to, I guess, allude to the story that was written about Dario and his restaurants, Cultural District Marketing Plan. There we go, item 4. And I'm going to pass this around so you guys can see it, but go right ahead.
Sure. So what Chair Cragen was referring to is an upcoming, it's a public meeting. Our target audience are the downtown stakeholders. Those could be businesses, they could be property owners, but everyone is welcome to attend. And it's part of the cultural district or cultural marketing strategy that this work has been underway with a consultant. It was grant funded. And what we're really looking at are ways to best promote the different reasons why people come into the downtown. Sometimes it's dining, sometimes it's arts, sometimes it might be other types of cultural or recreational type of experiences, or even the architecture, or even the art and the public art and the murals and things. So we know that successful downtowns have a very deliberate approach or strategy to how they promote and market both to their locals and to visitors who might be from the region, or they might be from much further away than that. And so we don't want to be remiss by not really putting together the types of material, whether it's in hard copy or electronic, in the ways that we market our downtown. And the downtown will continue to evolve and get new additions. And so we want to make sure that that strategy has the ability to update itself and so on. So anyway, that will be discussed with the consultant at the meeting Thursday next. in this very building at 8 to 9:30 in the morning, so people are welcome to attend. And then also, you were referencing a Worcester Business Journal article. It was from last week's issue, but what was so wonderful was to see an entrepreneur that's well known in Fitchburg and beyond, Elmer Melendez, and his wife Delmy, and it was really talking about their restaurant group that has been created over the course of his 25 years, working away at whether it was Dario's on Main, Tacos Tequilas, and also restaurants that he has at Bandolero and Devon's, and then also in Concord. So it's a great story, but he references how important community has been to his success. And when he says community, I'd like to think he's referring to Fitchburg, but I'm sure he means each of the communities where his businesses have located. But he has turned into quite a mentor and an example. And a number of the other restaurant-related operators have looked at what Elmer Melendez has done when they start to think about having a second location or expanding. So this was a terrific acknowledgement in the Worcester Business Journal to something that we'd already been paying close attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thrilled to see that and also to read more about Elmer's story. I think that Fitchburg has always embraced people who come here looking for opportunity, looking to, create something that, can feed their family, and something like, the Dario's restaurant group, there's a very large number of people involved with that. And this only comes about because of that dedication and the opportunity and, making this a place where he would want to be. So it's very exciting.
Sure.
Great. Comments or questions from my colleagues?
I was just going to comment on a couple of the businesses that
Absolutely.
opened, a couple of apparel retailers downtown. Well, actually one downtown and one, actually both on downtown.
They're side by side.
Yeah.
So those have not yet opened. They will be opening in succession. The first of the two of them just got their certificate of occupancy, I think, a day or so ago. So they are the same overall operator. It's a local fellow who is Lorenzo Rivera and also his niece, and they're going to be doing two types of apparel. She'll be handling more female-oriented, and he has more of a unisex look, customization, and that kind of thing, casual clothing. And so those two storefronts are in what we often think of as the 633 main building, but they're actually 635 and 637. And it's within that building that's directly opposite the library. And so that building has had some vacancy for a year or so, for a while. And with the library under construction and seeing a couple of new retailers come in, it just goes to show that, that this momentum continues to spread in a positive way throughout the downtown.
And everybody's excited about the miniature golf coming down,
Yes.
down to Lunenburg.
Yes, and the weather is perfect, so now that the timing of them opening up, yep.
Yeah, it really is impressive. I think that we all have our own version of Fitchburg that we live in. Mine definitely vacillates between places that children can have dancing lessons and places where one can have really excellent coffee or food. But, offering all these, these different varieties, and for people to really stake their claim here, I'm so moved, and I really salute them. So, all righty. Well, I have other here, if anyone had anything other that they'd like to bring forward. Anything? Okay. I'd like to thank Mary Jo and Liz from Economic Development and Planning for coming to, to add ballast to our meeting. And again, if any of the members of the public who are watching this are, have a business that they'd like us to highlight or look at or visit or what have you, we're here for you guys, okay? And we want to thank you for having a business in Fitchburg. So this concludes our agenda for the meeting. The next regular meeting of Economic Development will probably not be until September, unless there is something that we absolutely need to attend to. So I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Seconded.
Second. All right. So we have with no objection, I take this under unanimous consent, and we are adjourned.